All right, guys. Hey, welcome to this training video. In this video, we're going to discuss the element thermostat. We're going to give you some basic stuff just so that you can start understanding this. Jeff Durfee's going to come out with some PowerPoints, some additional training and stuff like that, where we kind of break it into a little bit more hardcore stuff. But we're just going to give you the basics, something that you can just mill on a little bit in your head. Now, once you pull it out of the box, this is a rookie mistake that's been happening is when we actually take these things apart, okay? As you notice, there's a crack right here. And a lot of times people who haven't used one of these or played with one of these, they like to pull this front cover off. That's a big no-no. If you pull it off, there's a ribbon that goes in there. You could disengage that ribbon and it may not work. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So you never want to pull this front cover off. You want to, when you pull it out and you want to get this back plate off, the back plate is right here. You can see that there's a hole right here. Okay, what you want to do is you want to pull that back plate off, okay? That's how you do it. There's a little magnet that kind of helps hold it on just a little bit, but it just snaps on and off a certain way, okay? Even let customers know, if you're going to pull it off the wall or do whatever, you want to make sure that you grab the thicker base part to pull it off. You never want to grab it by this front because you're going to damage it. So to get that back plate off, you just pull it apart like that. It separates so you can see how to actually do it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get a close-up of this. We're going to talk a little bit about the terminals. All right, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the terminals here. You'll notice that they're very, very similar to what you've been doing with the CT100, with the NAST, whatever. But as you can see, the back plate mounts here. You're going to have wires hanging out here. This is the good thing is, we're not trying to do the whole thermostat. We know that the front plate's going to actually, snap on there. But we just kind of wanted to show you this. As you notice, over here, these are labeled here. You have your Y2 and your Y, your G, your RC, and your RH. And then over here you have the C, the A. The O and B share the exact same terminal. And you have your W2 and your W, okay? Now, they're not screw terminals, they're push-in terminals. So, to engage them, what you're going to do is you're going to push down on this tab. As you can see, you can push down fairly easy. So what you're going to do is when you have your wire, and you're going to wire whatever terminal you're going to wire up, you're going to push down on it. You're going to push that wire in there. You'll feel it go in. You let it go. It stays down nice and snug, okay? So that's basically, how you're actually going to do it. Like I said, everything is very, very similar. There are a few differences between the element thermostat or the CT200 compared to the CT100. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to break down those couple differences just so that you'll kind of have an idea what you need to know and what you're going to need to train your first year guys. Some main things that you're going to need to watch out for, because there are a little bit of differences when wiring this up with the CT100. So we're going to go review those really quick, actually on a whiteboard. Okay guys, here is one of the differences between the element thermostat and the CT100 when wiring up, and it has to do with the 5-wire heat pump that has aux heat or emergency heat, okay? So we know that when we pull an old thermostat off, we're going to take a picture. We know that we have to know what color of wires went into that terminal, so we take that picture so that we can determine that. So we know that on a 5-wire heat pump, when we wire it up, we are going to need the G wire, which is the fan. We're going to need an R wire that's going to give it power. We know that we're either going to have an O or a B wire that we're going to have to hook up. We know on the element, the O and B actually share the same terminal. We know that we have a Y wire, okay? Now we need our 5th wire. Now we know on the CT100, when we were doing a 5-wire heat pump with aux heat, we actually use the W terminal, okay? That's the CT100. When we're doing the element or the CT200, we actually need to use the W2 terminal for the aux heat or the emergency heat or the backup heat, okay? So this is where guys are gonna make a mistake unless they watch this video, okay? Your experienced guys, you yourself, even your first year guys, because we've been training a lot on the CT100. So when they get to installing these element thermostats, they need to make sure, especially if you're in heat pump area, okay, and you have backup heat, we've got to utilize the W2 on the element thermostat. So if there's anything I need you to learn out of this little segment is 5-wire heat pump with aux heat, we are going to use the W2 and not the W. On a CT100, we would use the W, but on the CT200 or the element, we're going to use this W2. So I hope this is sinking into your brain. Thanks. Okay, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more about a 5-wire heat pump with aux heat. Okay, we just went through the scenario here of using the W2 as the backup heat or the aux heat. Now, there are some heat pumps out there that actually have a second stage aux heat or backup heat, okay? So it would be like a 6-wire heat pump. We don't see them a whole lot, but if you get into a fairly large house that's using a heat pump, there is a chance that you could actually see it. Now, we're gonna use the same scenario as a 5-wire heat pump, okay? The G, the R, the O and B, the Y, the W2 for the aux heat, but we know that we have a second stage, okay, backup heat or aux heat, okay? We're going to use the A terminal, okay, the A terminal on the element, okay? You'll notice that there is an A terminal on there. You're not going to use it very much, and it's only going to be used for certain things, but if you do have a heat pump that has first stage aux heat or backup heat and a second stage backup heat, the second stage would actually go into this A terminal, and then there would be some additional programming that you would have to do to enable that second stage heat in that heat pump, okay? So that stuff is Durfee's, you know, J-Dog Durfee special stuff. He's the one that's going to take care of that, but these are some basic things that you need to know. Thanks. All right, guys. Now, when it comes to conventional systems, or in the element, they reference or refer it to what we call forced air, which is the same thing. We know that you guys are used to conventional, but in the element, when you pick, what system it is, especially for conventional, it's going to be called forced air, okay? So, we know that usually when we have a forced air or conventional system, it's terminal to terminal to terminal. It's really, really simple to use. This one is a 4-wire conventional right here, where we have the W, the Y, the G, and the R. Now, we know that sometimes we run into these forced air or conventional systems that actually have a second stage heating source, or even a second stage air conditioning. We're not going to talk about the air conditioning because it's pretty basic, but on your second stage heating, we know that we already used the W for the first stage. We're also going to wire up the W2 for the second stage. That's pretty similar to what you're used to with the CT100, but if you ever get to a system where you have 3 stages of heat, then that's when you're going to utilize that A terminal on the element, okay? Now, these are some pretty big A systems right here, but you possibly could see these out there, okay, where you have 3 stages of heat. So you just need to remember, if I have 3 stages of heat, okay, the third stage is going to go in the A, the second stage is going to go into the W2, and then this is just your basic wiring up of the conventional system. So just remember, when you go to program it or you're dealing with the element, it's now labeled as what we call forced air inside the element setup. Forced air is what you want to remember. So if it's a conventional system, it's going to be called forced air for the heating side. So let's move on. Thanks. All right, guys, we got one more thing we want to cover that's a little bit different between the CT100 and the Element thermostat, okay? Now, we know this is rare, but I'm sure that as a head tech or even as an experienced guy, you'll experience this. Even if you're a first year dude, you need to watch out for this, okay? There are systems, when you pull the thermostat off, you will actually see two R wires. Sometimes it's in the R and the RC, or it might be in the RH and the RC, okay? What that means is there are two transformers powering up those two wires, okay? Now, we know on the CT100, if we ever had two R wires, whether it was R and RC or RH and RC, we actually had to pull that little teeny jumper out of there, okay? Now, with the Element, there's no jumper in here, okay? But the thing that you need to remember is on the very, very back here, where the back plate goes in, there's a little switch right here, okay? And this is what it says. It says dual transformer on or off, okay? These things are going to come defaulted off because we know that there's not very many systems out there that run on two transformers. So if you pull a system off and you see that it has two R wires, what you need to do is you need to take this little switch and turn it on so it says dual transformers on. So what it does is that's basically like taking that jumper wire out of the CT100. So then it tells the Element, hey, I need to separate the RH and the RC power because they're going to have their own individual power. So in that scenario, the system has to have two R wires to actually power it up. It is two separate wires, one going into the RH and one wire going into the RC, okay? So hopefully you got that. Thanks. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about the differences between an Element thermostat that has a C wire versus battery, okay? We know that when we pull an old thermostat off, it can go any direction, okay? It'll either have C wire, which is the 24 volt power, or it's just going to be running off battery, okay? Here's the key thing that we actually want to tell you. So what you're going to do before you actually install batteries into this thermostat, I would go pull the old one off and see what you're dealing with. If it has a C wire, great. If it's running off batteries, great. Okay, you have to determine, you know, what type of system it is, if it's running off C wire, what you're going to do. Okay, once you determine all that, then it'll depend on when you actually put the batteries in. Okay, now we want to focus a little bit on the C wire. We know that the back plate has nothing to do with this yet. We're going to put it on the wall and we're going to wire it up. So, you know, once we figure everything out, we put the back plate on. The system is not going to have any power going to it because you're going to flip the switches or the breakers. You're going to kill the power. You're going to wire everything up. Let's just say we do have the C wire, okay? So once we get it all wired up, we're good to go. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put the batteries in here, okay? You're going to flip the power and the switches, put everything on. Everything's going to power up, okay? What it'll do is, even though it's running off batteries first, as soon as you connect it to that back plate, it will, and within a couple seconds, it'll know, hey, I actually have a C wire. So it'll switch the mode from just battery only to C wire. Let it sit for a little bit. Once it recognizes that, then what you'll want to do is learn it into the panel with it hooked up. The reason why we want to do that is because when it learns into the panel realizes that it has a C wire and it will actually use it for a repeater for your Z-Wave devices, okay? So that's only if you have a C wire. So the key steps is this: determine what you're dealing with, okay? If it has a C wire, you're going to pull the old one off, put the back plate on, get it all wired up, power it up, put the batteries in, snap it on, okay? Once you snap it on, it's going to walk you through the learning process, which we're going to show you here in just a little bit. If you do not have a C-wire, then you can do the whole learn-in process off battery at the panel, okay? Because it's never going to have a C-wire. We're not going to worry about it being a repeater, because the panel will know not to use it for a repeater, because when we learn it in, it's going to be running off batteries. But if we learn it in and it's running off C-wire, it'll use it as a Z-Wave repeater. Here is the rookie mistake, okay? A lot of technicians will put batteries in this, learn it into the panel, and then go install it and hook that C-wire up. Guess what? The panel will not use it as a repeater. That's a big rookie mistake right there. So hopefully you've learned that. If you haven't, you've learned it right now. But the more powered Z-Wave devices that we have in the home, the better your Z-Wave communication will actually be. So those are some key things that you need to know about that C-wire. Thanks. All right, guys, so this is what you're going to see, okay, when you power it up, okay? When you first power it up, it's going to tell you start at Vivint Sky, okay? This is, telling you, hey, I'm ready to actually learn into the panel. So what you're going to do is you're going to go over it has a little check mark right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit this side button just one time, right? Okay. Connect with Sky Control Panel. And then we're going to hit yes. And it's going to start sending out the signal. We're just going to go hit add node on our panel. And it's going to learn it in. Okay. It looks like it already took it. It's just finishing up at the panel. It's saying acquiring general node information. You guys have mostly seen this. Once you get to this point, you can actually hit next, I believe, and it will continue to keep learning in. So we're going to hit this little side button to accept it, next. Okay. Then our third step is called HVAC setup. This is where you're going to go pick heat pump, conventional, or forced air. You're going to go in and set it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to click the side button one time. Okay, so once you get to here, you notice it's going to say heat. So we're just going to click on this side button because we're going to go in and pick what type of a heating system we're working with. Okay, type. Right now it says none. Okay, so if I want to scroll through and pick up, what heat source I want to use, I'm going to hit the down arrow. Okay, forced air is conventional. Then we have a heat pump. And then we have radiant heat, and then it goes back to none. So those are your three options for picking the heat source. We're going to go in and actually, let's just pick forced air for conventional. Okay. Once I pick it, I hit done. Okay. Then it's going to tell me what type of fuel source that I need to pick. This is the question that you ask the customer. What type of bill goes up in the wintertime? Your electrical bill or your gas bill? Right there it says natural gas. There's electrical. And there is fuel and oil. And there is geothermal. And there is propane, okay? We know that we're probably going to use mostly natural gas and electrical. So we're just going to pick natural gas, okay? So when you get to this point right here, if it's just forced air with one stage, we're going to leave it as a 1. If it has 2 stages, you would go down and you would click it to the second stage. That means we had the W and the W2 wired up. If we had the third stage, we'd have to use that A terminal, which is in a different one. That's a little bit more complex. We're just going to keep it basic for now. So we know that we have one stage. We're going to click one stage and we're actually good to go. Okay? Then I'm going to hit this button right here. We're done with the heating side of it. So we hit the button over here again and say done. Then it takes us to the cool. So if it's only heat only, you're done. If you have air conditioning, then you would click this button again here. We know that we use forced air, that we have air conditioning, which is the one that we'd probably pick if we're dealing with conventional or forced air. There's the heat pump. And then we have Then we have one that's called an evaporator, okay? Then it goes back to none. So we want to go back to the air conditioning one because we know we're not dealing with the heat pump. We're dealing with the forced air one. We would click it. If we had 1 or 2 stages, we would pick which one we need. We just want one. Then we're done. We click done, and we are done. All right, guys, we're going to walk through the basic setup of a heat pump. So we're in the heat part of it right here, and it's asking us what type of equipment type it is. There's our forced air. There's our heat pump. We accept it by hitting the side button, okay? We ask if it's natural gas or electrical. Usually heat pumps are going to be your electrical one, okay? So we go to electric. We accept it. So after we pick the fuel source and we accept it, it's going to take us to our stages, okay? If it's a 4-wire heat pump with no aux heat, you're going to leave it at a stage 1, okay? If it's a 5-wire heat pump with the aux heat, you're going to go past the 2 and you're going to get to first stage aux heat, okay? And that's going to tell the thermostat that, hey, this is a 5-wire heat pump with aux heat, okay? Then we're going to accept it. Okay, so once you pick the stages, this is asking you what reversing valve do you want to use, a B or an O. It comes defaulted to the O. You can change it to the B if you want. Now, if you ever get in a situation to where you turn the cool on and it's heat, or you turn on the heat and it produces cold, then you'll want to change this to the B valve. That's the ream and the rud thing that J. Dog Durfee always talks about, okay? So, most of the time you're going to use the O unless you know that you're calling for heat and the air conditioner comes on, or you're calling for air conditioning and the heat comes on, then you would change it to the B. But like I said, you're going to pick the O most of the time. So we're going to accept it, okay? Then we're done. Then it's going to kick us over to the cooling side for the heat pump. So we're going to go in, we're going to click it, heat pump, okay? We usually are going to have a 1-stage air conditioning on most of our heat pumps. But if we have a 2nd stage, that means we'd have the Y2 wired up. But we only have the Y wired up, so we're going to accept it. Now we're going to kind of show you how to actually operate the modes from here. As you notice, it's not turned on. If you hit the button, it'll come on. This is the off mode right now, okay? It's 74 degrees in the house. This means that it's off. If I take the select button and I just push it in once, you notice that it's going to change. We're in the off mode. Okay? If I wanted to turn heat on, then I would hit the select button and that would turn the heat on. Okay? So I can come back here, hit that again, go back to heat. There's what the cool looks like. All I have to do is click on it. That will turn the air conditioning on. I come back in here, select it again. That will actually shut it off. This is your heat and cool. This is your auto cool and stuff like that. Or when you get back to this, I selected it so we could actually go in and set it up, or we can go back. But this is your select button to accept things, and this is your arrow button. So, you know, if we want it to turn off, we just leave it there, click that. It goes back to the home screen. Tell the customer, hey, it's 74 degrees in here. If it starts getting cooler, you know, gets down to 68 degrees, we just hit this little side button, then we go to heat, and then we can turn the heat back on, or the air conditioning. So that's kind of the basic stuff. Now you notice that you didn't see the fan in there, okay? There is a good chance that by the time you install these in the summertime, you might see a fan option in there. It's not in there right now, and I don't know if it's going to get put back in there or not. I do know that it can be controlled from the panel and from the app. So I'm not 100% sure on that. Just be watching for it when you actually start installing these. Okay, so if you ever want to get into the programming of the element, we know that what you're going to do is you're going to take the select button and you're going to hold it down for about 5 or 6 seconds, okay? So it's going to pop that up, it's going to pop this little house up, and then it takes us there where it says settings, okay? Right here is user. This is kind of where you can just get some information. So if you're up in Canada, you're going to select user. Okay, this is units, Celsius and Fahrenheit. So you can go in and change it to whatever you need to. Okay, you can come down. Display, that's probably going to be gone, but it's only going to wake up on a button push. Okay, So you can come down. This is information, so I can hit the select button. Tells you the battery life. If it was hooked to a C wire, it would tell us 24 volts right there. I can go down. HVAC type is a heat pump. Okay. Relays. Network is connected. That means it's connected to a panel. And then it tells you the software version that this thermostat is actually running. Okay. We want to get back out of here. We just hit the button. It goes to information. Then we have testing. So we can actually go in and we can click on this. Then we can click on it again, and it's going to go test the heat. We can hit start. Okay. We don't want to hit start. Well, we hit start. Okay, it's going to go in and test it. We can hit stop. We can hit done. We can do the same thing with cooling. Go in and test the cooling to make sure it works. So that's going to be crucial this year. We need you to test the heat. We need you to test the cool and stuff like that. It'll go in and do a test on it, make sure that it's working just right. Okay, once we get there, we can go back. Okay, we just hit back until we actually get out. Now, installer is the one where if you need to go in and change programming, like, your technician, went to the heating and he put it as a heat pump and it's supposed to be a conventional or vice versa. This is where you would actually go in. We went through that whole setup in the initial setup, but if you need to go in, that's where you'd actually do it. Okay? So let's go back in here and just get out of here. Oh, we want to leave it as a heat pump. Electric, we just go through it until we actually get done and then click it. So if you go into it and you're into that, you have to go all the way through it so you don't mess anything up. Okay? Then when you get to heating, we can go back, and then exit out, and then we're back into the user mode. If you have any questions, you can actually email me if you'd like, or like I said, J-Dog Durfee, our HVAC specialist, will answer any of your questions. We're going to send out some PowerPoints and some more training on this. You want to make sure that you read it, you access it, and you understand it. Hopefully this helps.